New Orleans Catholic is a very heavy religious community down here. Currently, the Archbishop is in federal court arguing that they shouldn't have to pay out a settlement to over 500 known victims that are willing to be on this settlement case. And they've spent over $44 million that we're aware of in the last 4 years on the bankruptcy and attorney fees, trying to get out of paying the kids and the adults that they know about.
So, first of all, thank you guys for the work you do. Second of all, I know you get a lot of backlash specifically from said churches and their followers who don't want to, ready? Instead of solving this problem, they want to attack the people who are criticizing them for having these problems and even sweeping them under the rug. Do you like how much I know about this? Yeah, it's unfortunate that so many of us have had to endure not only religious trauma, but I'm talking about words we can't even say on TikTok at the hands of people who say yay God, yay Jesus, and sweep it under the rug in the name of, well, we got to protect the church and the elders and the people and the whatever. So, again, here's the irony, right? I was, again, born and raised in an international religious cult. That's not a flex. I'm just giving you context because I can sing the Bible in 3 languages, okay? Cult joke. Here's the point. When it came to protecting children, Jesus did not play. He literally said it would be better for you to put a millstone around your neck and be thrown in the bottom of the sea than to offend one of these little ones. Now, when every single time that I'm talking specific, I do a lot of like public speaking and awareness events and law enforcement training and all the things. When it comes up about, I always kind of rock people into the truth because it's a whole thing to get there, right? Many churches are rampant with child harm. Okay, we're going to use nice words for TikTok, but we really don't like these things at all. Okay, did you know that according to data, places of faith, specifically Christian faith, are more rampant with child harm and predators compared to secular environments? If you're a Christian, that should piss you off. I'm not here to piss off Christians, but I am here to call them to action and to find the Christians who would do what Jesus said to do. Protect children. Unashamedly, like without fear, without like, oh no, I might piss off my church. Find a different church if your church is not talking about child trafficking, if your church is not outspoken about protecting children, if your church does not have a zero tolerance policy for protecting children, they're not following the teachings of Jesus Christ.
The fact that the majority of churches have CSAM insurance is insane. And I can't say what that is. There's no list of what churches have it, but it's for doctors and churches specifically.
What is the purpose? I can guess, but like, help me.
It is insurance that if there are claims made, the insurance company will settle a financial amount up to a certain point on behalf of the insured.
Oh my gracious. Okay.
And so that's part of the problem with the New Orleans Catholic Church is they have this insurance, but they're not wanting to use it, or it doesn't cover this many people. I'm not quite sure of the specifics of it. But it's a lot. I've never known of an organization that could spend millions fighting this type of claim in court and still be open. But
I know of way too many religious organizations where they've hushed the whole problem, where they've moved the offender, just like moved him to a different location, like a different city or state so he can go hurt children over there, and or some sort of slap on the hand style, like demotion from their position or whatever. And like in addition to just absolute injustice there, and the victim has almost zero support, or there's some form of like, I'm sorry that happened to you, yay Jesus or something, but I have seen so many examples where the victim is completely disregarded and the entire church is like laying hands on to forgive the predator. That is biblical at all. Jesus did not play at all when it came to protecting children.
Yeah, growing up in the WWJD era as a millennial, like that's part of why this kind of got a hair up my ass, for lack of a better phrasing for it. But we've been doing this for over 2 years now. And surprisingly have not gotten a lot of people locally involved with it. We've got a handful that come out here and there, but it's me and one 60-year-old dude every Sunday just yelling at them like they treat Planned Parenthood. So I don't interact with the kids, but I do like tell the parents, like, kind of like you, I can quote the Bible. I grew up in it. I went to a private Baptist college, been there, done that, guys, was in the program. And like lambs to the lion's den, they're bringing their kids to slaughter at the steps of a known predator ring because I always get in trouble on this app for what I say. It's crazy though how many parents are just complicit with it, and I really feel like it's for vanity and narcissism at this point. They're more concerned about how they would look to their own community than what their kids could experience or are experiencing.
Absolutely. Or have any interest in helping the child heal. Like they'll be like, oh, thoughts and prayers, or they'll call it some like adultery or some other like, oh no, I sinned, but they have a complete disregard in general for the actual child, the actual victim, who now has to not only carry this shame because they're made to feel like it was their fault. Full stop. That's like a huge part of, you know, PTSD and all the reasons that people really can't overcome. And they don't have support. They don't have trauma-informed therapy or care to help them like overcome them and realize, hey, that was bad. That was not okay. We're not going to try to make that pretty. We're not going to be like, oh no, someone made a mistake. Like that's not a mistake. That's not a thing we should just make excuses for.
It's crazy how they do that too. And going back on what you were speaking on, people saying all the time, like, I'm shocked you're not afraid, or X, Y, and Z when you do things like this. Like, I live in Louisiana. I live in a very, like, hard right. My neighbors have Trump isn't guilty flags next door to me. And I've got all sorts of things written on the windows of my car. I've got flags all on the front of my property. And I do this every Sunday. And other than some property damage here and there, nothing physical has come of me. Like, more of these people are talk than they are bite. And I think that if we actually like return their energy, we can make a substantial change with a very small but large force.
100%. I'm here to, among many things, unite the experts and find the people who will. Like, I know for sure it'll take a small percentage of people that are serious about solutions, not bias, not letting their bias get away, not pretending like it's some other shiny object, but willing to acknowledge the real problem and handle it, deal with it, not be tolerant of it, not make excuses, not try to make it pretty, not try to brush it off. Absolutely. So here's the interesting thing. It always comes down to power and profits, corruption in general. And I've seen way too much of it, generally from the top down and in every sector of society. Last year alone, I worked with local, state, and federal authorities in various states around the United States to not only expose, but to bring down corrupt organizations that specifically that were hurting children, okay, and that were operating under the guise of like, we're a happy church saying Jesus, or yay God, or whatever. Again, Christians, like, I just want you to know, I have absolutely no problem with your belief or with whatever you want to do. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not knocking anyone's faith. I hope it's very clear that what I'm calling out is that none of us should be okay with people harming children. And if you're a Christian, you should especially want to yell from the rooftops how unacceptable it is that people who use the name Christian, whatever that even means these days, are harming children in the name of your God. Now, those of us who are not Christians, we see that example and we are disgusted with it. So if you don't want us to associate that with Christians, we need to see Christians denouncing that. What do you think?
Oh, exactly. And I have that conversation with my mom all the time because she is still is more of a Christian now than she ever was when I was growing up, which was weird. But her excuse is always, well, they're not real Christians. And I'm like, no, they are.
I have a good one for that. No. Okay, because I've heard it all. Okay, so here's every single time, specifically when I'm like, I was born and raised in an international religious cult, it was Christian. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, but those weren't real Christians. And I said, okay, cool story, bro. So where are the real Christians? Where are the Christians that are following the teachings of Jesus Christ, specifically when it comes to protecting children? Show them to me because I want to find them. Guess what? I have made entire programs with different nonprofits I've worked with. Most had like a religious undertone, and I was like, okay, we need churches to be effective. Like, I don't even, by the way, according to the Bible, it says, howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Like, it's not about a building. But if you want to be in a building, totally fine. I'm good with that. My point is that
those who pray in public.
Totally fine. My point is that how can we make churches helpful, not harmful to children? How can we make sure they are not a safe haven for predators, and that children are actually safe there, that they have community and safeguard, all the things that we want to think are pretty about churches? Okay, now I created all these programs. Literally, one was called Activate the Church. Another one was called Millstone Ministries. Guess what? I'm going to try to keep the story short because it's a whole thing. In one case, I built a whole checklist. The Activate the Church program was literally a checklist that people could take to their church to make sure their church was safe for children. It was everything practical, from like fire safety doors and exits and whatever, to vetting the people who have access to children, to making sure background checks and drop-offs. Like, it was a very practical, cost-effective checklist. And guess how, we had volunteers take it to churches, and guess how many churches implemented or like said, yes, sure, we'll do this. Yeah, you're correct. Okay, so then in a different organization, I am very vocal about like, where are the real Christians? And there are two pastors, and if they come on tonight, I will shout them out. There are two pastors that I still think are like, I'm just going to say it, but the only two pastors I've ever met that really gave a shit about protecting children. So they were like, no, this is unacceptable. We're going to work together to ignite the churches. I'm like, okay, let's see. So we created Millstone Ministries, which was literally like, I simplified, because I was like, okay, maybe like this is too complicated for people. Let me just try. We had a piece of paper with 3 things that we asked the church to sign. Here were the 3 things. Ready? 1, a zero tolerance policy for child abuse and trafficking. 2, we will vet everyone who has access to children in our community to make sure they're safe for children. 3, we will not support known bad guys that I can't use here, or traffickers, people who hurt children or traffickers. Okay, it was a pledge. Like, we used wording to make sure there was no excuse not to sign a piece of paper. We all know that signing a piece of paper does not require action. Yes, we know that's pathetic. Here's the point. This was not even me. This was, okay, I made it and whatever, and yay. Millstone Ministries, we put the verse there. By the way, that verse about the millstone is repeated 3 times in the New Testament. Like, Jesus meant that shit. Okay, so we put the verses, the reference. Okay. Pledge, guess how many? So this, one of the 2 pastors was part of some kind of Baptist organization, I don't know, of preachers. Okay, this preacher guy sent it to his network of his Baptist people, and it was, I believe, 102 or 5, pastors that he sent it to. Guess how many pastors signed a piece of paper saying those 3 things? 2 people signed a piece of paper. Y'all let me know, especially if you're Christians, in the comments. Is that what Jesus would have done? Could they call themselves Christians and do that kind of shit? Do you think Jesus would attend their church? Do you think they, by the way, there were 2 times in the Bible that Jesus was real gangster, okay? Because normally he was peace and love. And then the one time he ever went to church as an adult, he kicked ass and flipped tables, and that was pretty cool. Second time was when he was talking to a bunch of people. They wouldn't let the kids through, and he said, let the children come unto me. By the way, it'd be better for you to put a millstone around your neck. Like, by the way, go unalive yourself. It would be better for you to do that than if I catch you offending a child. He said offending. He didn't say like violate or defile or something. He said just offending. Okay, I think Jesus would still kick ass and flip tables if he went to churches today. From what I've seen, I don't see people that are prioritizing the protection of children. And I think that is so unacceptable. I'm not only talking about churches, but I am, in this conversation, specifically talking about churches because they should be on the front lines. I want to find the real Christians. I want them to be effective.
Well, the churches link back to the parents, and the parents need to be the front line for it. They're the ones who are, bringing them into an environment that is known to have this problem currently. Like, it is not a unsolved mystery, and I think that's the bigger where it has to come to when it comes from the church, is not even from the church itself. The church has made clear whatever level of leadership it is, where they stand with it, and it's getting the congregation to step away from it, to have that faith outside of their organized religion, or find a different church that does fit into that. But that's such a small Venn diagram of churches that would sign something and legitimately do things to protect kids and fit into your specific faith.
How embarrassing though, right? Like, not just like a group of people that don't give a shit about protecting children, people who call themselves Christians or a church or whatever. So here's my message to Christians. Like, look, first of all, if you want us to join Team Christians, because look, I'm not out there being like, you have to do what I do, and if not, you're going to hell. Okay, if I was, I should be leading by example. But here's the point. Christians are real, like, you have to do what we do the way that we do it. If not, you're going to hell. Okay, if we saw Team Christian at the front, if I'm going to speak for myself, if I saw Team Christian at the front line of protecting children, leading the fight, or at least supporting the fight, I'd be like, you know what? These are good people. I'm with you. I don't see them here. I'm in the front lines. I don't see them. I've been here for years, and I'm looking around, and I'm trying to recruit them, and I'm like spoon feeding them, and I'm trying to make little excuses for them. No, I don't see it. That's not what Jesus would have done.
Yeah, we don't see it either. And I mean, anything, if you don't mind, if I can reach out to you, I'm going to get out of your live and let you get back to doing what you normally do. But I kind of feel like I took over for a second. But I would love to pick your brain on how to kind of make this a bigger thing too, because I have not been able to do it here. So maybe someone in your expertise field might be able to point me in the right direction.
No, first of all, I love that you're here and I'm really enjoying this conversation. I believe this is a big part of the solution. Like if we could get people in our community to be activated around protecting children. So let's talk about it. Sandy, I love you. So tell me about it. What are you asking? Okay, just so you know, I own an online marketing agency. So my actual career is marketing. Okay, I specialize in messaging. Basically, I simplify complicated, boring things that no one cares about in a way that makes people care. So I use that expertise in awareness and talking about this very hard truth that most people don't want to understand. So there's, the smile and waving part. There's the let's make it a little bit pretty. There's let's make the truth into bite-sized pieces and spoon feed it to people so they can digest and assimilate it. But then tell me about, I can guess what they are, right? But tell me your approach and what the main obstacles are.
So, as far as getting more people involved with protesting the church, I think the biggest obstacle is the fear of it, and I don't know how to overcome that.
The fear of what specifically?
The fear of the New Orleans community is very heavily Catholic centric. So, like Gail Benson, the owner of the New Orleans Saints, is donating to the New Orleans Catholic Church currently to kind of refresh the Jackson Square Church, the St. Louis Cathedral. A lot of businesses and companies are owned by people that are within the financially beneficial side of the New Orleans Catholic Church. So I think that there's a fear of retribution in this area that people are kind of concerned with, like whether it be their home, their career, their financial negative side effects that come with it.
Let's unpack like one by one because I'm my brain is real like wanting to understand problems because I'm very like problem solution oriented, if you know what I mean.
Love it.
So
Love it.
okay, in every single I recognize patterns. I like that's just how my brain works. Okay. In every situation that I've identified, whether it's like big, tough, strong-looking dudes who should not be this afraid and or elected officials and politicians, whatever, there's always this common denominator of fear. That's just the word that means people are, ready? They're too scared to think about the scary things happening to children, and they allow that fear to be an excuse that is somehow acceptable to them, that they allow that fear to hold them back from protecting children. So, look, when I was not like trying to get into this stuff, okay? I was trying to get everybody else to get into the stuff and they wouldn't. And long story short, this mission chose me and I've accepted it now. But at first I was like, why me? Like, no. I, first of all, don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be on camera. Everyone else should do this. But if not them, then we must. So here's my point. I accept now not only my role in this, but why me? Because it's ironic that a petite, smiley female can look into the eyes of these big, tough men and these politicians who are like, oh, so scared. And I'm like, yeah, that's not acceptable. We're not going to allow our fear to hold us back. So I make my message a little bit pretty so that they will actually absorb it, right? Part of marketing. It's not only about delivery. It's about will they convert? Will they understand it? Will they, do the thing? So when it comes to fear, I like to lovingly and gently unpack that in order for people to understand that it's not acceptable. Also, you have to provide tangible solutions. So often that means like tailoring our strategy in a way that's more pretty so that like people get it or want to get it. I'll give you an example of that. For many years, I was speaking against child trafficking, and I still do, but I also realized the public just like cannot get it. It's too dark, scary, gross. It's too like twisted with conspiracy theories. There's too many reasons people reject it. We can use fear and whatever, but yeah, cool. So what I identified, okay, let me like from this spectrum of intensity, narrow this down into digital safety because no one can call that a theory because I can prove it to them. I can show them little snippets that, even this much of what I show them can make grown men cry. I can prove it to them. I can narrow it down into something even grandparents understand, that a lot of children have access to things that are not appropriate for them, right? So often it's not about like giving them the whole fire hydrant. It's about kind of simplifying and narrowing it down to a little spoon size bite and giving them the solution wrapped in a bow, like literally done for them, no-brainer type solution. Because if not, it's too easy to like forget and be too busy to do this. Does that make sense? I'll give you another example. Okay, this is like a whole other thing, okay? Harris County, which is Houston, Texas, is one of the major cesspools of human trafficking in the entire United States. Not okay. Also, for 4 years of my childhood, I was in Harris County, Houston, Texas, being trafficked every single week. And long story short there, I could talk a lot about that, but like nobody helped, nobody stopped, not even law enforcement. And I was like literally, obviously a child on the streets. Okay. Now, to this day, as of until about a year ago, Harris County was not prosecuting child traffickers. The children would get arrested for prostitution, and the bad guys would get put out on the streets. So like so many levels of not okay, like just not okay. And again, like I'm simplifying, I could tell 20 stories about, no, not okay, not okay. So here's what I did. So every organization told me they couldn't get to the district attorney, blah, blah, blah. She was this woman who was going for re-election. And I was like, hey, I'm paraphrasing here, but this is essentially what I said, right? We want to support you because, look, this is a whole thing in women's rights and children's rights. This is me playing dumb and smiling and waving, ready? I was like, what are some of the obstacles that have prevented you from being able to do this? In other words, like, how can we help you weed through all of this? And there were some tangible logistical things like, well, I'm not the investigator, so blah, blah, blah. If they don't bring me the cases, okay, well, who do I need to talk to? Blah, blah, blah. There were some things, and there were also some like, this is not acceptable. This petite smiley female is looking you in the face and saying, nope, we're not going to do this because nope, we're done with this. So you're going for re-election. How about this? I'm going to have you on video saying that you are going to pledge to prosecute child traffickers, and we're going to bring you cases, and you're going to prosecute them. And that's going to gain everybody's support because guess what? Who doesn't care about protecting children? That would be the one thing that should unite us all. So she did. She said the things on the video, and guess what? We did actually get prosecutions, which is like actually the whole point, because all the smiling and wave bullshit is just like the things that need to be done to get to here. But the point is that sometimes, specifically being, a petite smiley female that gives no shits, often we can use that to our advantage, because when you hold people to the fire, but in this, like, I call it playing dumb and smiling and waving, but like, with this kill 'em with kindness type approach, right? It's about middle ground. It's about what can we do? It's about, we don't think this is acceptable. And it would be really bad if the public knew that you weren't prosecuting child traffickers. Like that wouldn't look good. That wouldn't get you reelected, right? So this is my marketing brain, right? Like, what is your pain point? What do you care about? Getting elected. Okay, here's the thing. It'd be really bad if the public knew that you weren't prosecuting child traffickers, right? Yeah. So let's make sure they know you're going to, and let's actually do it, right? Yeah. Okay. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's a lot down here. New Orleans is weird. The way that I generally present it to get people to come out there is I tried to short and sweeten it. I had like a little laminated sign that I would hand out that just said, come protest the separation of church and state, plus of other things every Sunday. But I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, I shame them like they shame Planned Parenthood. So like, just come join us. And even that doesn't, as short and sweet as that is, when I talk to people about it, doesn't really get consistency either. Like, I'll get someone out there for 1 or 2 Sundays, but for the long run of it, like, it's not a short process. You've been doing this for several years, trying to protect children. You've gone through your experiences. Yeah.
People don't have the patience, but okay, this is my opinion or approach, right? I've tried for 3-4 years to ignite the public and be like, here's the truth and here's how you can help and here's all the ways, and I'm going to package it like a bow and give it to you. What I identified, unfortunately, is that most people are unwilling to be aware, and those who are willing to be aware are not willing to actually help, or it's like in a very small way that's, not going to make much of a dent. So my personal focus, instead of focusing on the public must be aware because they're going to be helpful, I have shifted my focus to finding the law enforcement officers and agencies, the tech giants, the cybersecurity experts and people like that, the people who can actually work towards solutions. And again, thinking creatively, it always comes down to power and profits. You just have to know that, right? How can we make this a profit-driven incentive? How can I get these people on board? This person cares about being elected. This person wants to blah, blah, blah. This person's going through litigation and they want to know that blah, blah, blah. Like, identifying all these massive big players, but like, how can we champion solutions? How can we unite the experts around this common goal of protecting children? Often that's thinking rather creatively. Often that's some smiling and waving to make them look good in the public. For politicians, it is 100% packaging it in a done-for-you solution and giving them the talking points and helping them to look good on stage. No problem with me. You know what I mean? So there's a couple things here. It's like a know your audience. So if you're talking to people like me who already like get it, I'm like, oh, I'm with you, right? If you're trying to basically, if someone is in the church and you're, okay, hypothetically, right? If you're basically preaching at them like they would preach to Planned Parenthood, we both know that's not effective, right? So I'm just saying, like, what I would do to church people, I talk to them with a biblical base. I tell them what Jesus said to do about children. I tell them why I'm not a Christian. It's because I don't see churches on the front line. I'm happy to debate. And it's not about confrontation, right? I'm super calm and they're not used to that and all these things. I'm not trying to shake their face. I'm not trying to take them away from them. I'm holding them to the standard of their book, their rule book, right? The Bible. Because they won't resonate if I use like other words or terms, or if I come at them from like a different realm. You know what I mean? If I come at them with the Bible and I hold them accountable to that standard, checkmate. Know what I mean? That doesn't mean, now again, I tried with the churches and I'm honestly like, I don't have 10 years to like hold their hand and shit. So like I'm over it when it comes to like trying to get the church to be useful in this fight to protect children. But I'm just saying, when I do talk to people, a lot of times in law enforcement, I'll encounter really good men. Like, look, I'm not preaching at churches anymore because like I don't have time. Okay, it's not like, it just was not effective. They were not interested. I'm not interested either. So now when I work with law enforcement, like different realm, right? We're talking about good guys that are actually doing some good shit, taking down bad guys, rescuing children, right? These are like big tough dudes who have been through all kinds of stuff, military veterans, government contractors, like dudes who would like, I'm just saying, whatever you're about, the point is that you're doing good right now, so I respect you. Does that make sense? And often we'll have like campfire type chats and somehow Jesus, something about Christianity comes up. And those are different conversations because we both are, like, we know we're same team when it comes to protecting children. They know I'm not attacking them. They know I'm not like, you know what I mean? But they want me to like accept their Lord and Savior so bad. You know what I mean? So when I talk to those people, I can, and I talk to them more like bros because we're on that different level, right? But like, that's when I'm like, look, if I saw the church on the front lines of this fight, I might be team Christian. I don't see them there. Do you? Is your preacher, pastor person talking about child trafficking? No. Is that what Jesus said to do? Is that acceptable? Is that? No, I don't think so either. You know what I mean? So it's the approach and the energy of it, but it's also about like using their logic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I do, when I do my treating them like Planned Parenthood, I do quote the Bible quite often at them. And then I've had several conversations with some of the fathers that were in town doing training that had no clue who I was or what I was doing, who just came out to try and like figure it out. I've had conversations with one lady who comes out and prays the rosary over us every Sunday. Honestly, real sweet lady, just cannot get it through her head that she is praying the rosary over the wrong people. And I have found trying to talk to my mom that there's like not a huge amount of conversations that can be had though.
She's doing that to like pray you away, or what's the strategy there? Okay, got it. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so I actually filmed a video that I haven't published about this yet because it's a message to Christians, because I've had so many of these conversations and I'm in this ironic position, right? Where like I was born and raised in an international Christian cult, all kinds of abuse, including trafficking, all in the name of God, Jesus, and the Bible, around 25,000 children, not okay. A lot of kids did not survive. Like, that's just okay for context. But as of the last 15 years since escaping this cult, I've had these conversations in the last few years with, ironically, Christians that like, I'm in this weird position where I'm like, I'm not trying to help Christians Christian better, but it's almost like that's, you know, I'm in this weird position where I'm like preaching to them about what the Bible says to do. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't read this shit in 15 years. Okay. So all that to say, I filmed a video just sort of venting, but also unloading my thoughts about like Christians. I want to help you be more helpful and less hurtful when it comes to helping survivors, when it comes to trying to recruit us to your cause. Like, I want to help you reach the lost, because you're not, because you don't get it. You just don't. Okay, so like a few things. If you want us to follow your example, we need to see that example. You need to be leading by example. Do you see Christians leading by example? Me neither. So either call yourselves a different name, like rebrand, or you need to be, and you guys need to be the ones denouncing those bad actors that are doing bad things in the name of your Jesus God in the Bible. Because if you're not, and we don't see you doing that, and especially if you're trying to deflect and make excuses and cover that shit up, we see that and we hate it, and we are absolutely not going to be part of any team that does that shit. Doesn't mean I'm not spiritual, doesn't mean I don't believe in, we can call it God, but like a higher power and whatever. The point is that, why would I be Team Christian if I don't see you guys leading by example, even in the very least, which is protecting children? So that's not what Jesus would have done. I don't think Jesus would be on board. And if it's so important to you to recruit me to your team needs to be leading by example. Now, the other point of this, and I would love feedback, Corey and anyone else in the comments, like if you're a Christian or whatever, the other point is that they come at you with like, okay, people like us, we know about all the beliefs and rules and stuff. It's not that we like don't know, it's that we've seen bad examples. We are completely not interested for reasons of the examples that we've seen. So when we explain that to you and you're like, oh, but God is love, that's not like, if we're like all these reasons and you're like, but yay God, I want to help you understand that it's not because like we are not aware of God, it's because we have seen the example that humans, Christians, have set, and that does not represent God. Not to me, not to Jesus, not to those of us who are not Team Christian. So I want to help them understand that if they want to help, they need to help. Not preach, not talk. But churches are supposed to, like, they were formed to help the widows and the homeless and the hungry. They were not formed to be like a social networking. Totally fine if you go social network, do you. I'm just letting you know that's not your service to God. That is your nourishment, right? Me drinking water, cool, great, I'm hydrated. That's not my service to humanity. That's me nourishing myself, right? Also, howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands. But if you congregate in temples made with hands, totally fine. Just letting you know, according to the Bible, that's like not a requirement for being a Christian or a believer or whatever. That's a total human construct. So when they come at me with all these human constructs and like, but you know, anyway, I could go on and on about all the different things because I just like know too much, but I feel that dialogue is one of the ways that we the people can make a lot of progress in America. Unfortunately, there are very few people that are willing to have dialogues without being like, if you don't believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, then you're going to hell. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's not going to help anybody, I promise you. It's not helping your case.
It doesn't help that their justification is that, well, they'll get what's coming to them anyway in the end. And that's not, we're trying to prevent harm from happening, not maybe have justice when they pass.
You know what's interesting? Jesus never, another thing Jesus was not doing that Christians are really into, Jesus never condemned anybody to hell. Specifically, he was never like, if you don't do what I say, you're going to hell, or if you don't do it this way. Or he also never asked us to accept him. That's a different subject, but he was never like, accept me or you're going to go to hell. The only people that he was like, let me see if someone knows in the comments, something about den of thieves and vipers. Guess who he was talking to? The church leaders of his day. That's the one time he sort of threatened. So the one time he went to church, and the other time was when he was like talking, or they were talking to him or whatever, and something about den of vipers and something. I don't know. But he was like, anyway, he mentioned hell. He didn't like condemn them to hell, but he was like, something about how are you going to escape hell? I just think that's ironic. So like, I think it was Gandhi, who I'm not a fan of, but who said, I like your Christ, I just don't like your Christians. Something like that. And I was like, Yep, because conceptually, right? The greatest of these is love. Like conceptually, I believe the Bible has a lot of timeless wisdom and really good concepts in it. It also has a lot of outdated information that's like obviously not applicable to today. It also has a lot of human manipulation, which is like, my point is that I'm not saying like it's all bad. I'm saying if Christians were to actually live by the example of Jesus, which was love, the greatest of these was love, and if you don't have love, it's nothing. Let me tell you this, it's not love to ignore children that are being harmed. It's not love to brush over and sweep under the rug adults who harm children. It's not love to, condemn people to hell because they don't agree with you, or to make them, like, all these things that I see Christians doing, that's like not even biblical. So if that's the standard, which, is their standard, I'm just calling them back to the reality of the fact that we see the example of Christians. We're not into it. We don't see a good example overall, and we see mostly bad examples. So if I saw less bad and more good examples, I might be more willing to be, at least, associated with Team Christian. But from the example I've seen, not even in the 20 years of my childhood, I'm talking about like in the recent 15 years. I'm not saying every single Christian. I'm saying the majority of the Christians that I've confronted about protecting children, they're not the ones who have actually joined the fight. It's Pornhub, it's the adult content industry, it's the law enforcement, it's military veterans and service members every single time. It's the good guys in the shadows, but it's not the Christians. Here's my thing. I have tried to recruit so many Christians and churches to the fight. I'm not saying every Christian. I'm talking about churches specifically that should be leading by example. I've gone above and beyond to try to spoon feed and invite them. I haven't found a church that has been leading by example. I've heard of some. Some people have told me oh, my church is, and I'm like, cool, man. I would actually like to see that. I haven't experienced that, and I've extensively tried to reach out to hundreds of churches in the last year, and literally none of them.
And that's why I don't coddle them specifically. When I was first out there, I tried to be nice. I tried to have conversations. I tried to really gauge kind of where it was at. But this is a very wealthy church, and it does have political power. So I didn't feel nearly as restrained when I did start kind of getting more CUNTY with it. And I definitely don't do the coddling and spoon feeding them. I am just you are supporting a known $44 million legal defense fund of known predators, and it's your children that New Orleans Catholic Church leaders are abusing, because they don't abuse Baptist kids or atheist kids, they abuse Catholic kids. And I'm not nice about it at the church. My niceties got about 2 months into it. But they are also very fucking cowardly, because I parked my car right in front of their church. 99.9% of the time, there's never been any issues. There's been a couple of physical things here and there, and again, property damage, but things can be replaced,
Yeah. I mean, still just wow that there's even that extent of things. Because, I make it a point. I'm obviously not perfect, but, and I'm very passionate about this cause. So, I have to really check myself to stay balanced about not only, staying focused on the solutions and all of that, but also staying balanced, like Badass Survivor said, not generalizing, not discounting entire populations. And I feel we have very limited time to solve this problem. So I'm going to focus where it is most effective. I have tried with the churches extensively. I can truly say I have tried for years, very legitimate efforts with people who resonated, people who went to church, people who were part of these pastor organizations, whatever. I have been incredibly unimpressed. Now, if they exist, I would love to find them. But my point is that I don't have time to I don't have 10 years to hold their hand and say it nicely, right? I would love to find the Christians. Not even, they don't have to be Christians, but my point is I know there's a lot of Christians. I know there's a lot of churches in America. I would love to find the ones who show up if God be for us, who can be against us? The ones who aren't scared to face this. The ones who aren't afraid to talk about it, much less take actions. The ones who aren't afraid to have a zero tolerance policy for child abuse, and words I can't use, in their own church. I'm talking about in their house of God. So if I found churches like that, I would absolutely support them.
Well, I do know that one of the New Orleans Catholic Church members got arrested before I did, so that was at least fun, funny, not fun. But it's on government records now what they do as well. Thank you, Jefferson Parish, for writing out 3 pages of what I was saying before the guy smashed my windshield.
Dang, bro.
But again, that was it, and he got a little petty arrest. So property damage is nothing when it comes down to what the actual topic of conversation is. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I
There are
think
definitely
it
more
would be
important
very
things.
healing and helpful for people who have been disillusioned by the church to see even some of them like being very outspoken and leading by examples. That's what I was saying. Like, if y'all don't agree with this, I need to see you denouncing it and or rebrand. Like, do
Yeah.
both. But I'm just saying, like, this is you being represented by bad actors acting under the name of God, Jesus, the Bible, doing really bad things. I don't see Christians denouncing it. And when I talk privately, directly with Christians, generally, they get very defensive and awkward. Like, instead of like, no, you're right, that's unacceptable, very few of them have that posture. Most of them are like, you know, they just kind of make excuses for it, or they get real quiet, or they're like, but why don't you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? Like, they just sort of deviate from the real topic at hand.